Oiled leather is a chromed tan leather that is taken and stuffed with a variety of oils and waxes. This process softens the leather while also giving it wear-resistant properties. Often used for boots, bags, belts, and more, this cost-effective material typically runs between $3 and $10 per square foot. Oiling leather involves applying a raw or unemulsified oil, or even a combination of raw and emulsified oils, and penetrating waxes to the surface. And this allows them to be absorbed into the leather fibers, and this makes it a little more water and moisture resistant and gives it a distinctive, rich, and sometimes darker appearance. This can also add a little bit of weight and density to the leather as well. And even sometimes when you bend or crease it, those creases can become a little more noticeable because of the discoloration caused by creasing and the reallocation of those oils and emulsifiers that are in there by the bending. Let's take a really close look at this material so you can see what it looks like zoomed in. Here we've got the top of oiled leather, and looking at it you could see a relatively consistent pattern, and there's even some kind of bumps and valleys and a little bit of a texture to it, yet overall it's going to be relatively smooth-ish to the touch, given all the oils and waxes and conditioning agents that are in it. It's not going to be super smooth, but it's going to be a lot smoother than an untreated leather, kind of like a vegetable tan or something like that is a full grain. Looking at the bottom, the flesh side of the hide, we do see a typical pattern of wider, more open fibers here. But even in that, we could still see a little more density, towards the hide itself, and a little more consistency in that overall appearance, look, and feel. It will feel a little fuzzy, but it'll have a little bit of a different, sensation to it than a typical vegetable tan leather. All right, here's the cool one, the section. So the section of oiled leather really shows how that, those oils and waxes are going to show up in that material. We still see at the top that relatively thin but strong, durable, and tight fiber pattern that creates the surface. And then even as we get in towards the middle fibers, they open up and expand a little bit, as is expected, all the way into the bottom when they become the widest. Yet we could see in here where a typical section of, say, a vegetable tan leather is going to have a similar, for the most part, color pattern to it. Here we could see the darkening of it that is primarily driven by the addition of those fats and oils and emulsifiers and things like that, and waxes. And it's clear you could see that, embedded now into those fibers. So it's really cool to be able to look at this and you could say, hey, where's the oil? How deep does it go? How does it actually change things? Well, here you have it. You can kind of see exactly where it goes, and it's a really unique view into oiled leather. Let's look a bit at how the tanning process is different. So oiling leather is essentially a finishing process, not so much of a tanning process. And so where in tanning processes, we have obviously the most common today, which is chrome tanning using chromium salts. There's also vegetable tanning. In most cases, oiled leather is going to start out as a chrome tanned leather, and that way it's kind of soft to begin with. And then that leather is taken and dried. Once it's dried, any kind of additional colorants are added, as well as oils and greases and waxes and emulsifiers, and they're kind of packed in there. It can then be stretched, and if needed, dried once again, and then reconditioned another time to allow more uniform, kind of moisture content and distribution of all of those oils and waxes through that hide, and then stretched one more final time, and you guessed it, an additional coat of wax can be added at that point. So now you're taking this really soft chrome tan leather and essentially infusing it, drying it, stretching it, and then applying another coat of wax. So that's where you get that really deep kind of penetrated emulsifiers and oils and things into those fibers, which give it a little more of a stiff texture, because now it's not just like empty fibers, you have things in there. But because of them as well, and those waxes and any kind of a coating, it makes it relatively water resistant, and less resistant to getting scratched, or more resistant to getting scratched, and provides a great material for a lot of different applications, given that it's a little more durable and has a lot of those conditioning agents in it. Looking at the cost per square foot for oiled leather is typically around $3 to $10. and you could certainly find it, less expensive, more expensive. The key factors to look for are going to be the quality of the hide, the quality of the tanning process, and then exactly any kind of finishing or unique additives that are put into it that make it its final material. So for example, it could have high quality waxes or certain types of oils. It can have surface protectants that are water resistant or UV resistant, different colorants added to it. So a lot of variety in terms of the options, and all of those can influence what that final cost will be. But in general, you can look to find it for around $3 to $10 per square foot. The pros of oiled leather include that it's very wear resistant because of everything that's in it, makes it relatively durable. Additionally, for the quality characteristics that you get in that, it's a relatively low cost leather. You could certainly get a lot of variables in a different type of leather, different tanning processes, things like that. But across the board of leather, for natural types, this is actually pretty affordable. And because of what's in it, it actually can look good over time. Depending how it's worn, how it's maintained, it can have a unique look, and that can give it a really cool look depending on what you're looking for. For the cons, one is that since it is infused with so many oils and emulsifiers, they may, kind of come out from time to time. And so when you're maintaining it, you just have to be careful for, some rub off of that. It's not going to be, a huge factor, given that it's, part of the production process that will be in there. And they do a pretty good job of making sure that that will stay in there. But just the nature of having oils and waxes on leather means those oils and waxes can rub off potentially on other things. So if you do have one that is unsealed, just keep in mind that could be a con depending on its end use. And some good things to use oiled leather for. These are going to be primarily shoes and boots. We're going to see that all over the place, and there are great applications for this, given its water resistance, and scratch resistance as well. We also see it in bags and personal accessories, luggage, jackets, some clothing, and even some furniture. And so again, like most leathers, you can use this type for, most types of projects, smaller projects, accessories, belts, straps, things like that. But primarily, we're going to see it most often in things like boots and shoes. A few tips for working with oiled leather. First is that when you use your tools, since there are oils infused in this, make sure you clean your tools before using them on another type of leather. It's not like it's going to be spilling out, it's not like that dramatic. But like anything, you want to make sure that you're using, clean, sharpened tools. That way you're going to get good results. And say if you're using this leather and moving on to like a very, fine, lighter colored leather, you just want to make sure nothing is going to transfer over to that. And it's not going to be a huge deal, but just something to keep in mind if you're working with a really clean, tight shop. Along with that, if you can, take some scraps and kind of bend them softly, bend them pretty hard, and get a feel of how they may respond in your end use product. Some may stretch a little bit and change color, some may be fine. So just give a little test to the actual sample of the material that you're going to be using, cut a little piece off, and just make sure that it's going to respond well for the end product you're making, and that way your result is going to look like what you think it'll look like before crafting. And there you have it, a look into oiled leather. This is a really great one, and when used for the right things or even for just some creative projects, it's going to give some really great results. And I think if it's something that you want to try, it's definitely worth bringing into the shop and trying out a project or two and seeing how it comes out. I think you'll like giving it a try.